Welcome, welcome, welcome to your Blue Feathered Stories. I'm your hostess, Blue Thunderbird Woman, also known as Carol, your storyteller. Today, I'm super excited to share this incredible story. I named it Blessings to Birth, because that's exactly what the process was and is, and it's just amazing and such a miracle to witness is the birth of a child. And so we are super excited today because we have a special guest by the name of Amy Everett, and she is here to share her birthing story with her son, Oscar, and all of the steps that led to this incredible and amazing moment. And I really do feel that there's so much richness and wisdom and beauty in this particular birth story. And I'm sure there is in so many others, but it's the only one I've ever been able to witness. So that's the only one I can really clearly share about. So today we're bringing in Amy to join us in our sacred conversation as we reflect back at the journey of gestating this incredible child, this incredible miracle, and all of the beautiful processes along the way. And so, Amy, welcome, welcome. So honored to have you here with me today. And I can't wait to let our listeners really listen into this actually incredible story, really incredible story. And there actually isn't any English words that really depict what this story is about. And so, yeah, let's welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. Yeah, it's birth is already on a whole other level, and putting that into words, I totally get that.
Yeah, yeah. So you and I have known each other for a good year now. Actually, it's been a year, really, where we've really known each other. And we're kind of like those two people, when you meet somebody, there's just this really deep connection. And in a very short time, I have been privileged and honored to participate in some amazing, really huge, what's the word? Monumental events in your life, I'll say. And one is, of course, the blessing, the birth of your son. And so let's step back to the time that you had a vision for this particular birth. This is your second child, and you had a very specific vision as to how you wanted to maybe improve from the first birthing with Abrielle to the second one. And so let's share with us a little bit about what was that vision.
Yes, absolutely. So my first daughter, we had midwives and we had a home birth, and I was definitely gearing up for that as well. But I wanted to embody or incorporate more ritual, more ceremony into the birth. I mean, birth is already a rite of passage. Abrielle's birth, like my daughter's birth, was incredible. But I just had this deeper calling into birthing and ceremony as well. Like I have this great calling to work with my roots. Part of my roots are Indigenous, to work with young women, Indigenous women from Canada or all over the world, basically. And so because of lots of our ceremony, rituals, traditions have been forgotten, lost, buried, whatever it is within us, it's all starting to sort of come out now, like within me. It's all like unearthing, and they're never forgotten. They're inside of us, and they awaken in us. And so yeah, I had this vision of, I actually heard the story taking my doula course about this woman giving birth in a teepee, and I was like, oh my God, that's so beautiful.
Mm.
And I'm like, I knew I couldn't do that in January in Manitoba and cold in winter. But I wanted to bring as much of that vision to life in our home. And so I knew that I wanted ceremony. I knew I wanted drumming. I knew I wanted to smudge.
Mhm.
I wanted, you know, all of that kind of there. And so that was sort of my vision. I didn't know how it was going to take place, but
Mhm.
that's what I envisioned for this birth with Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I didn't know it was a boy.
Yeah.
We waited we found out at the birth.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I remembered it you did share that vision with me at some point, and you had asked if I would be part of that birthing process. And I was like, wow. Like, I work with women with the womb, and I do a lot of birthing in the sense that, women who have had miscarriages or abortions or any kind of womb trauma of any, even surgeries and those kinds of things, then sometimes I take women through being supported with the grandmother moons. Like, we rebirth those babies and we do ritual and ceremony around those things. So I have done a lot of womb work with the spirit world, if you will, but I have never actually been part of an actual real physical birthing. So it was just such a beautiful honor. I was like, okay, I'm gained. Like, yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure.
I remember actually, it's funny when I met you and I started to learn more about what you do, and we did the rite of the womb together. The more and more I felt like I wanted you there, right? And I didn't ask you yet. And because I also envisioned a woman, like most of drummers, and I mean, not that there are lots of women and drummers and healers, and but there's a lot of men. And so I envisioned a woman. And so it was when we went on our trip
Mm,
to Vegas, and you were telling me about this story where you went on this journey into someone's womb, and you said, oh, it felt like I was like her doula, her spiritual doula during this birth. And
mhm.
I was like, okay, I'm just gonna ask her because we knew each other quite well, and we knew each other. We were soul sisters, but
Yeah.
like I was like, you know what? Would you actually like to be at a birth, like at my birth, at my son's birth? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was, yeah, so cool, so beautiful. Yeah, it was. We'll get into that actual experience in a moment for sure. But I want to take us now into this beautiful text I received one night. Like, maybe I think it was maybe about a month before the birth of your child, and it was an invitation to a ceremony called the Blessing Way ceremony. And I remember receiving that text from our beautiful Monica. I remember when I started to read it, I was like, oh, please don't invite me to a baby shower. Because honestly, I've never liked them. I just, yeah, whatever. I just never liked participating. But then as I was reading this invitation, I was like, well, this sounds really different. And I remembered the only thing I needed to bring was a bead. And I thought, oh, I like the ceremony already, right? Not really knowing what it was all about. And so I had reached out to Monica and asked her to give me a little bit more details around the ceremony. And I was like, oh. And then I really felt called to drum at the ceremony and be part of the opening process of that. And she was just like, yes, yes, yes. So let's move into that particular ceremony. So do you actually, that was your first, was it not?
Yeah, that was my first time experiencing the blessing way. When Monica shared it with me, she said, Amy, I need to do this ceremony for you.
Mhm.
And I didn't even know what it was. I've never heard of it before, but the more she described it, I'm like, yes, 1000% yes. And so I literally, without knowing what would happen or, what would take place, I went in there just all open to receive.
Mhm.
And honestly, like I know the hardest thing for me and maybe for many women, many people listening is to receive, right? We struggle, like we give and give and give, but that ceremony is fully focused on the mother and giving on to the mother. It has, yeah, like not to say it doesn't have anything to do with the baby, but like it's not like baby clothes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but it's the mother receiving just so much. And so I struggled with that a little bit, like, okay, it was like resistant to it, you know, because you're like the center of the ceremony. And so I was like, hey, you know what, no, Amy, you're gonna go in there and you're gonna be like totally open to what's happening. And so I did, and it was just, oh, I could cry. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Well, I think we all cried during that ceremony. So you specifically chose women, some were family, some were friends, because that blessing way ceremony is really about those that you feel connected to and that you know will support you in all levels up to and after the point of birth, right? There were some really amazing and beautiful elements in that ceremony. I was so actually taken by that ceremony that I've now added it to one of my offerings. Like it's like every woman who's about to give birth should receive a blessing way ceremony. Honestly,
Absolutely.
because I saw the power in that. And maybe you and I can share a little bit of the elements. We don't need to talk about all the specific elements, but maybe out of all of those different things that happened within that container of time, what was the one or two things for you that meant the most?
Oh, well, definitely. It was funny because I had my mom and my two sisters there, and then I had Monica, like the one who she's a good friend, and then I had you and Sam there, my friends, and so there were like these worlds colliding. And my mom, just to say, and my mom is very religious, and so I didn't know how she would take this. So that's what kind of like there's this part of me that was like, oh no, like is something gonna happen? But and the same too with my younger sister, we're not super close, but I felt it was important for her to be there, to offering it to her to be there. And so the fact that these worlds were colliding, it really felt like ah, just an amazing sisterhood. Like we were all the same. Like, you know, yes, my mom and my sisters and my friends, but like we were all the same. We all shared this beautiful, beautiful connection. And even like my younger sister, she's never given birth, but yet she was like all part of that, you know, like so it was just that's something I really it really meant a lot. I think it brought my sisters and I closer together, more of a friendship on a friendship, which is a deeper connection, and brought that sisterhood all together. So definitely that. You know what? There were so many pieces of that it just were phenomenal, but it had to have been the salt, playing in the salt, the Epsom salt. So part of it is there's this big bowl of Epsom salt with herbs, like relaxing herbs and baking soda so that I can use in a bath later. And everyone got a chance to like put their intentions into this bowl, into this salt. And every single one like brought me to tears. And while we were doing it, because I got a chance to do it too, you couldn't help but play in this salt your hands and let it fall through your fingers, and everyone was sort of playing with it different, and there was like laughter in it, there was tears, there was love. It was just that had to have been just a beautiful moment there. I love that one.
Yeah. For me, like all of those parts of that ceremony were magical, but I would have to say the one that really sticks out the most for me was the red cord. And so that was the part where Monica had shared with us that starting with you, we tied a red cord, like a red ribbon, a red string around your wrist, and then it was connected to each and every one of us. And we tied it all around, each and every one of us had it on our wrists. And then, of course, the symbolism was that we were connected to the umbilical cord of the child through you, right? And it was red for the reason of the blood, for the reason of the tree of life, all of those things. And it's just really interesting how all of those pieces really tied right up to the end to the actual birthing story, but we'll get there in a moment. But I just remember when the cord was wrapped around my wrist and I thought, it was about making sure that we were connected and that we were going to support you through the whole process. And that cord wasn't to be tied until such time the umbilical cord was cut from the birth of your child. And so it was a commitment of like over a month that we had to wear this cord around our wrist. And for me, it was like I constantly played with it and was constantly reminded of the ceremony. I was constantly reminded of my connection to you and my connection to this unborn child that still hadn't come to the earth side yet. And I just remember thinking the power of that, but then also that all of the other sisters and your mother and everybody else who was there, we all were wearing that. And so there was this connection between all of us as well, even though all of the others were strangers to me, right? But there was still this connection through this cord. And it really just really hones in on that oneness connection, when we can really understand and understand that we are all connected, right? Through the great mother's umbilical cord, if you will. But yeah, that was extremely powerful for me. It was just a constant, like every time I'm playing with my wrist right now, and I'm just like, oh, like every time I would touch it, I would be like, it instantly brought me to the ceremony. It instantly brought me to you and connected to you and connected to this child that hadn't been birthed yet. Like it was instant, like it was like one of those rubbing stones or something that instantly brings you to a certain place and time, right? Like it was just like this
Yeah.
magical stone or whatever. And so that for me was extremely powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else in that ceremony that really sticks out to you that you want to share?
Well, you honestly, I love how I love the drum. The drum is such a powerful instrument. You did an opening ceremony there, and I know we're going to get into the birth, but it coming when the birth happened and that played again, like I don't want to say played, but you opened the ceremony again. It was just I felt I felt all of the women that weren't there, that were at the blessing way there, like it tied it together for me. It was just, oh, that whole ceremony, honestly, it was just, I think about it now and I want every woman to experience this. Like such a powerful ceremony before birthing. It's just amazing.
I agree. I mean, we could probably just do a whole episode just on that ceremony alone and talk about that. But yeah, I do agree. It was so empowering. Like I wasn't even the recipient of, of that ceremony, but I could just see like, wow, like every mother to be needs to be empowered like this before they go on that birthing rite. Because I would imagine it just fuels you with what you need to just go through that incredible experience of birthing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We also did like all of you each wrote a little a little message on a card, like a paper and colored it or whatever you wanted to put. And I still actually have that strung up in my room, but it's like, you are powerful, breathe, your body knows you're ready for this. Like it was all these really empowering messages while I birthed. And I remember actually that I was in my room on the bed when I was birthing, and I was actually took a moment to like look at them. I wasn't saying them, but I was looking at them, and it just again brought all of that power, that sisterhood into that room for me
Yeah.
to do what I need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun actually to write your message. And what a great idea. And it actually had a little string of little lights or little fairy lights or whatever, and that could be lit up. Yeah, it was beautiful. So let's move into getting ready for the actual birth. Like we knew that things were starting to happen, things were coming. And I remember I think I don't remember what your due date was exactly, but I just remember sort of having this conversation with Spirit going, okay, like I need you to give me a dream about water when the timing is coming because I want to be ready. And that's kind of what I asked for. And so I had a dream. My dream was that, and it was just a wild dream, but I was on this mound. It looked like, honestly, if I was to interpret it now, it looks like maybe the back of a turtle. It was like a mound, and there was this building structure that was there. It felt like it was government, or I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the hospital. I have no idea what it was. But I remember that everybody was on the hill on the grass and everybody was eating their lunch. And I had found a bench to sit on, and there was a woman there with a small young girl, like a toddler. And I sat beside the two and we were just chit-chatting. And all of a sudden, people were getting super excited. And this land, if you will, was surrounded by two rivers. And all of a sudden, everybody was getting super excited and yelling out, "The bears, the bears, the bears are here." And we stood up and we looked, and there were exactly 300 bears, 300 black bears in the waters, which made no sense. But there they were, and they were coming onto this island, onto this area that all these people were. And then I saw three horses, three Pegasus, and they got out of the water and they went on to the other side of the land, and they were all good. And then this little tiny baby black bear came up to us where we were sitting on the bench, and it was voraciously hungry. And I remember saying to the woman and the young child, and I'm saying, "Oh, the bear's coming to eat. We should probably not feed that little bear because Mama Bear is going to be around." And the woman replied and said, "It's okay. I'll feed the bear." That's kind of what I remember of the dream. So the dream was so vivid for me. And because of, oh, that was the other thing, the waters rose. The waters rose quite a bit, like, 4, 5, 6 feet while all these bears were coming in. I literally jumped out of bed. I came upstairs and I started voice messaging you to let you know about the dream because it meant I understood parts of the dream, and I understood that it was going to happen soon. Like it was about the waters. The waters were coming, right? And the bear I understood was the little black bear was gonna come out birth hungry type of thing, right? Because it was like a newborn black bear. Then I understood later that the woman and the child were you and Abrielle. Like, I understood that later. All these pieces were coming together. So I was busy frantically voice clipping you. And at the same time, you were voice clipping me, telling me that things were already starting to happen. Are you looking to work with your divine feminine? Why not get in connection and work with the 13 grandmother moons? Join us live, monthly, twice a month for the full moon and the new moon ceremonies as we meet together in a community on Zoom. Can't make the Zoom call? Don't worry about it. Your subscription allows you to have full access to all of the recordings for all ceremonies for the next 13 calendar months. Come and join us. We'd love you to be a part of our divine feminine community. Aho.
I remember that. I remember I was voice clipping you, and while I was voice clipping you, your voice clip came through. I'm like, oh, you're messaging me right now.
That was a really powerful dream. And then we know that later that dream had a lot more significance later in the birthing story. So 300 bears. Yeah. And so I remember we were joking about that. Okay, is that happening at 3 o'clock today? Is that 3 o'clock in the morning? Like, is that 300 hours of labor? Like, we were just like, what's the 300 about? We move into the birth. Yeah. You called 3 times and left me a message at 3 o'clock in the morning That might have been my 300, right? I made my way with all my ceremonial drum and everything to come and participate in this birthing story. So, yeah, let's talk about that for you. Like,
I remember I remember feeling it was Wednesday when I started to feel there's something going on. You know, my body was preparing. I can feel this, like my cervix and uterus, like the ripening, and but I wasn't feeling any contractions yet or anything like that. And so, but it wasn't until Thursday the next day in the evening. I was hoping I was going to birth during the day, but that because for Abrielle, it was Thursday about 8:30 is when I felt my first little contraction. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is it. So I tried to sleep through the contractions until about midnight, and I had to get up and start breathing through them. I'm like, okay. So I woke up, Miguel said, okay, we need to call your parents to pick up Abrielle. For the poor girl, for a few days, she was out of sorts, all her sleep. But they came around 1:30 to pick her up. And I remember at that point I sat in the bath and it was around 2:30. That's when, yeah, I started, okay, let's call, like I called my sister, my older sister, Miguel called his sister, we called you. And so, yeah, started happening. And it was amazing. Like your it felt like a circle. And this is coming to mind right now. All the pieces that were there in place to keep this ceremony safe. Like the teepee, like a roundhouse, like it just I felt safe. I felt safe with all these pieces in place, all these people in place. Having you there, bringing spirit there, bringing ceremony. Like I remember, there's certain things I don't remember. Some of it's a little bit of a blur after it gets like more, but I remember when you came and we smudged, I was going through contractions, but I remember when I was in the bath and Miguel was beside me and you opened ceremony. We had your drum, you did the four directions, and that lasted about, I'll say 15, 20 minutes. And at that point, I was like having from 8:30 on, like, and this was at 3:30 in the morning, I was having contractions consistently, like closer and closer together. It was never more than 10 minutes apart from that point. And at that point, when you were opening up the ceremony, they were about 6 minutes apart. When you opened up the ceremony, I literally did not have a contraction the whole time you opened up the ceremony. And I was like, I remember having my eyes closed and turning in the bath for the directions. um, but I was like, okay, I'm like not having a contraction during this. And once you were done, I said to Miguel, I said, I didn't have a contraction. And he's like, because it was right after you did that, that's when I felt a contraction come in and I had to breathe through it and, hum through it. And I was like, okay, that was great. Like that was crazy to experience. It's like the baby knew, okay, we're having ceremony, everyone quiet. That was that was powerful.
we had a few really beautiful, powerful moments too through the whole evening because at some point, and both you and I have Thunderbird medicine,
Oh
and
yeah.
at some point, like I think your waters were just broken.
It was that happened just before my waters broke because once my waters broke, I was like I moved to the bed and baby was coming.
Yeah. So it was just before that, and literally the power on the whole block went out. Like there was no power. And part of our blessing, the blessing way ceremony was we were given a candle and we were to light the candle when you started your labor. So I brought my candle with me as part of the ceremony, and you had your candle, and they were the only two candles lit, and the midwives were working through candlelight. Like, so that was actually, and I just said to you, I said, Amy, the Thunderbirds are here. Like they have come. right? They're here to witness this birth, right? So it was just like, oh yeah, there was no doubt about it to me that the Thunderbirds, we may not have heard the thunder, but they control electricity, right? They control, that's part of thunder, electrical, right? And I was like, oh yeah, this is the Thunderbirds. So that was pretty amazing and potent through the ceremony.
Yeah, that was, you know what? That was a moment to really remember. I remember Miguel said he looked because we thought was it in our only house, like it's just us, like the we blow a breaker. But Miguel saw it, he was only our bay. Like at that and that yeah, that at that point it was like, and I remember people saying, like you said, yeah, you said, I remember hearing you going, the Thunderbirds are here. And then my sister said, this boy or this baby's gonna be a force to be reckoned with.
So now we move into the actual, you're on the bed and you're birthing now, like the crown is showing, and so while that is all happening, everybody's in the room with you. There's a bit of chaos. There's what, three midwives in there too, and I'm in the dining room, living room area, and I'm now drumming, and I know that you need the energy to push harder. And so I remember the drum saying, okay, loud, Carol, like loud, right? It's like she needs the energy of the drum, and it was like loud. And so then I started to drum loud, and then I started to sing a morning sun song. And just as Miguel was catching the baby, literally the sun just came above the rooftops in the east, and it was just like everything was happening all at the same time. Like it was like, and I'm not even in the room witnessing all of that. Like I'm like witnessing what's going on over here, and you guys are going through, what's happening over there in the bedroom.
I really wanted Miguel, like I didn't know where I'd end up birthing. But I really wanted to either to be me or Miguel to touch the baby first, to be that. And when I was laying on the bed, that was when the midwife was showing Miguel how to catch the baby and as it was coming out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I actually remember you drumming because I know like my mind, it's so funny. As soon as the waters broke, it was like the whole game changed. And I was like, whoa, because I was able to like manage through the breathing and but like my mind had to catch up to what was happening and I was starting to panic. And I loved our midwife. She's amazing. She's our the godmother, one of the godmothers for our baby. And so I remember she said, Amy, she got on the bed, she went, Amy, just breathe. And so the whole room went quiet at that point. I went, okay. And I started to slow down my breath. And she had to, I was fully dilated, but I had a little bit of cervix still left. And what could happen is if you push and the cervix is there, it could swell and make it harder. So she asked if it was okay that the next contraction, she pushed the cervix away, and that way the baby would come right out. And so I said, yeah, I said, go for it. So that's what happened. But I remember because I think my eyes were closed most of the time. I remember I just had to close my eyes just to be within myself and breathe.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing, and I knew Miguel was like guiding, helping guide it out and ready to catch it. And I remember hearing one of the midwives say, oh, there's its head. And because I didn't know if my pushing was working, even though like I could feel it, but like she's like, oh, there's the head. Oh, there's the eyes. I'm like, okay, it's working. So I'm like, whoo. And I can hear you drumming. And like I was like, I wouldn't say I don't know if I was with the beat of well, probably was, but like I just remember kind of tuning everything else out, knowing that my pushing was working, and I can hear you drumming, and I'm like, okay, and push it through. And I knew as soon as the head was out, it was like one or two more pushes left. And yeah, he came out, they put him on my chest. I started, obviously started crying because it was like such a relief, like it's finally out. And, and then it was when Miguel, I looked at him like, because again, no one said, it's a boy, it's a girl, no one said anything. And I
Yeah.
said to him, well, what is it? What is it? He's like, I don't know. So we lifted him up and we're like, oh my God, it's a boy. So yeah, it was, oh, I, and I remember you told me that afterwards that you said when he came out, the sun just poured right in. You saw the sun come up, and I was like, oh my God, that's just amazing.
I do want to share a little bit about, so when I do this kind of ceremonial work, I'm in two worlds. I'm in the spirit world and I'm in the physical world, the visible world. And there were many times through the course of the evening, early morning, I was in another ceremony. It was like I was in ceremony in the invisible world. And I want to share a little bit about that because it's precious and beautiful. But basically, the 13 grandmothers, which I work very closely with, they came and they created a circle around a fire. And you were placed on a buffalo skin, a buffalo fur, and all of the women that were at the Blessing Way ceremony, plus the ones who couldn't make it, were all present. And we were all your doulas. We were like, everybody was like doing their thing around you, surrounding you, and everything. And the grandmothers were completely encircling you. And they were just holding that space and they were humming, right? They were, because you would hum through the whole process of the
Yeah.
contractions and all that. And so they were holding the humming. And then the grandfathers came in, and the grandfathers stood on the outside circle of the grandmothers facing outwards. So being able to see what was coming. And they all had their staffs or their spears or whatever, and they were all pounding the ground like to say like we're in ceremony, we are protecting the women, and this is an occasion to be celebrated. But it was like they were doing that. And then often the midwives would come in and they would check on the heartbeat of the baby, and that heartbeat was like really fast, like it felt like it was like super fast. And so while I was in that invisible world, the men would actually beat on their chest the rhythm of the child, of
Mm.
that new man that was going to be born, right? Like it was like they were beating on their chest and they were doing that. And I was drumming to the heartbeat of the unborn child. Like I don't know if you caught that or not, but every time that they would tap in, I would tap into the heartbeat, and that was the beat that I was tapping into, so that you had a deeper connection to that sound of the heartbeat. That was like happening in the spirit world. And it was just so beautiful. And I really felt Miguel's presence amongst the men, the grandfathers, in that really divine masculine way. And then within the container of the grandmothers was this beautiful inner circle of the divine feminine. And yeah, it was just, there was two ceremonies going on. There was the invisible ceremony and the physical, the visible ceremony. So it was incredible to be a part of that. Yeah, it was really, really special. I want to come to now like the afterbirth, because for me, who had never experienced a birth before, there's the whole question of the umbilical cord, right? Like you had a super long umbilical cord. Apparently it was longer than what's normal out there. I have no idea. But when the afterbirth came out and the placenta came out, then I completely, for the first time in my life, really understood the power of the tree of life. Like, because that placenta was the tree of life. Incredible. And then I understood the power of, coming back to your blessing way ceremony, the red strings that we had tied around our wrists, like then I understood what that was about, like really that connection of the umbilical cord. So one of the things that we were able to do is you had created a group chat for all of the women that were part of your blessing way ceremony. And I was literally giving everybody on time relating, okay, the head is here, like, so everybody was like experiencing the birth at real time. And I got everybody to get their scissors and cut the umbilical cord when the umbilical cord was actually being cut. And so that was, yeah, like the blessing way ceremony continued, right? Like right to the birth.
I didn't realize that you guys cut the cord at the same time that the baby's cord was cut. And oh my gosh, that's just, I just realized that. That's so touching. Yeah, the placenta is a powerful organ. In this day, there's so much, it deserves so much reverence. And it's sad today that it's, it's kind of lost that, it's this thing that needs to be discarded, and it's, this and there's just so much power in that. It's the interface between baby and mom, like there's two blood types, and it's like this filter of nutrients, and oh, it's just a powerful organ. So to see it come out and to see it, like you said, the tree of life in it, yeah, it deserves so much reverence.
And it is a really just beautiful analogy of how that tree of life then continues the cycle of life, continues, the whole process, the whole evolution, all of it. Like now you have a newborn child and he came out super hairy, just like
Yeah,
the little black cub, the bear. I said to you, oh my gosh, this is the black bear.
yeah, he was so hairy. So he looks so much like my dad. My dad is full Aboriginal. And when I saw him and when my dad's very sick right now. He's getting better, thankfully. We didn't know if he'd make it, but he's getting better. And when I put him next to my dad, when we finally saw him, I was like, holy man, this is my dad. Like, and it's very beautiful because my dad's native name, spirit name is Makwa, which is black bear.
Mm,
And you didn't know that. And you told me, you said to that Oscar, he's the bear in the dream. And his spirit name is Little Bear.
yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I said, I have to tell you about my dad's name. So yeah, it's all these things that have um come together. Like you can't make this shit up.
No,
It's so powerful. And the blessing way, it's just a ceremony that needs to be unearthed, that needs to be brought to life. And it's something I'm going to do for sure. And I know you are. Like it's such a powerful ceremony. And yeah,
yeah.
I'm so happy it was part of my life, part of my journey and birth journey.
Yeah, we have to thank Monica for that, that's for sure. So this is a really good, perfect way to come to close. I do want to say that the whole, the whole thing from the blessing way to the birthing really, for me, underlined the power of sisterhood because it was incredible to watch everyone support you from the blessing way all the way to the actual birthing and afterwards, like it was, and I know you felt it. I know that that was incredible. And like you said at the beginning, all worlds kind of came collided together, but we all played our part. Those ceremonies they need to be remembered, they need to be unearthed, and you're absolutely right on that. So before we say goodbye, is there any last thing that you want to share, Amy, and maybe whether it's a message for mothers to be or yeah, whatever's coming to you.
Always listen to your heart, your intuition. It's your guide. That's your North Star. Sometimes it's going against the grain. Sometimes it's going against what everyone else tells you, what entities, governing bodies tell you. But that is your guide. And this birth that I needed, I trusted in my intuition. And if I hadn't, it would have been all different. And I can say that for certain. And and your child, in whatever form, you know it best. No one else but you. And so that's what I would say.
Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. And for all those who are listening, both Amy and Monica are doulas, and I will put the links down below that you can reach out to them if you're looking for that kind of support. And certainly reach out to me if you're looking for a blessing way ceremony. I'd be more than happy to help in that way. So thank you, Amy, again for spending some beautiful sacred time with me. And yes, and for all those who are listening, stay tuned for the next podcast. Blessings, everyone.